it's been a while since I've posted a video. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I will post this video soon after I film it. Now, before I get started on this video, it's going to be probably a somewhat unpopular opinion. And so I actually wrote down some notes and a sort of, not a script exactly, but some things to go off of so that I make sure that I say what I want to say, how I want to say it. And secondly, this video is not meant to call anyone out, to, say that anyone's doing anything horrible or anything like that. It's more meant to start a discussion, and hopefully it will, because I think that this video is about Doctor Who, in case you were wondering. I think that there are certain things that we don't really talk about within the fan base, and that need to be talked about, in my opinion. So, that's what this video is going to be about. It's just meant to start a discussion and get people talking about, what the video is about. So, without any further ado, I'm going to open the note on my phone, and I'm going to be looking at my phone a lot because I have notes on there and I want to make sure I say things right. So, within the fan base of Doctor Who, there are two specific groups of people that I'm really addressing this video towards. And they would be the NotMyDoctor people, who probably are not going to listen to what I have to say before leaving, hate comments or whatever. But there's another group of people that I think will listen. And these people, I'm going to call them critics. That's just my shorthand. I don't mean actual professional critics. I just mean people who have criticism and critiques of Doctor Who as it is right now. And I just want to make clear that there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to be oh, you can't criticize the show. No, of course you can. But as the video goes on, you'll see what I'm trying to get at. Now, these two groups of people are very different, because the NotMyDoctor people hate the fact that the Doctor is currently being portrayed by a woman, Jodie Whittaker. They will attack anyone who does like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. They will, they hate the show in its current form, and to be honest, I feel like they just hate the show in general, because how you could watch a show like Doctor Who that has messages of kindness, inclusivity, and, be that hateful, you just don't understand it. Either that, or you hate it. And that's how I feel about the NotMyDoctor people. Now, the critics are very different from those people, because they might just have an issue with something in the writing, for example, they might feel the characters need better development, or the plots are too easily solved, and, that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with those people. I just want to make that fully clear, because I know that there are going to be some people who might think I'm trying to say, like, oh, don't criticize Doctor Who, and I'm not trying to say that, because that would be ridiculous. Like, you can criticize Joe all you want. I mean, personally, I don't seek out criticism of Doctor Who. I don't necessarily agree with it, because I personally enjoy the show in its current form a lot. So, like, if I happen to see criticism, I'm not going to be like, oh, you can't do that. Unless I believe that the criticism is really a front for some prejudice or some, like, bigotry or whatever. Then I'm going to be like, no, you can't say that you just don't like the writing when you were complaining about the Doctor being a woman before you even saw any of the writing, for example. Now, my next point is going to seem like I'm comparing the Not My Doctor people and the critics. And I'm not trying to say that they're the same in any way, because the Not My Doctor people and the critics are, as I've said before, very different groups. But some Not My Doctor people and some critics will say the same things, so it can be hard for other fans to tell them apart. Now, I'm not saying that you can't say that Doctor Who has bad writing, that there are plot issues, that there are character issues, obviously you can. But my issue with this is that I want to be careful how I word this, because I don't have this in my notes. I think that it's valid for the fans who are genuinely enjoying this era of Doctor Who to question those who aren't, and just make sure that they're a critic and not a Not My Doctor person. Now, I think there are certain cases where you can tell the difference, but there are other cases where, if you just see someone saying, oh, I hate the Timeless Children, you're gonna assume it's a Not My Doctor person, because a lot of Not My Doctor people hate that episode not because of any writing issues or anything like that, but because it proves, for once and for all, that anyone can be the Doctor. Anyone of any race, any gender, anything can be the Doctor, and they hate that. Now, if you just watched the episode and you just felt like the plot wasn't that great, that's fine. I'm not talking about that. But there are a lot of people who will say, like, oh, it's ruining the canon, it's ruining the continuity, and it's like, is it? Is it really? I don't feel that way, personally. But, if you feel that way, that's fine. I feel like it can be hard at times to be in a fan base with the Not My Doctor people, because they ruin it essentially for everyone else. Because I used to be a very big critic of Doctor Who when Moffat was the showrunner, because I felt like a lot of his writing was just plot twist after plot twist, and nothing meaningful happened to any of the characters. And I also felt like he would just include a lot of sexist jokes and comments and stuff in the writing. So I definitely understand critiquing and criticizing Doctor Who, but I don't think I ever was like, oh, well, if you like Doctor Who, you're bad. And the Not My Doctor people sort of have that, they give off that vibe of thinking, oh, you like Doctor Who now? You're an idiot. And that, I think, is what ruins it for the critics. Because the critics are not trying to say, oh, you can't like it. They're just saying their genuine critiques and criticisms. But if you say the same things as people who really hate the show, it's going to be hard for people to tell that you just want the show to improve. And I think that's why we have to make clear in this fan base that it is not a place where you can just hate the show and stay in the fan base. You can have criticisms, you can have critiques, but if all you have is hate, then you're not welcome. I'm sorry. And I think this is an important discussion to have, because the Not My Doctor people, it's not just that they don't like the show, because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like the show for a while when Moffat was running it, but I wouldn't harass those who did. And that, I think, is the big difference between critics and Not My Doctors. Because Not My Doctors will harass anyone who likes Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, who thinks that this era of Doctor Who is good. And the critics will just say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. So the critics, I think, need to be the loudest in condemning the Not My Doctors, because if they weren't in the fan base, I don't think anyone would have a problem with any valid, criticism of the show. I personally think that the reason why people get so intensely defensive is because they're so used to having to defend the show and having to defend, oh, well, actually, it's okay that a woman's playing the Doctor because XYZ. And it's we shouldn't have to be having those conversations. We should be able to have more productive, more helpful conversations for everyone. And we should be, and everyone who wants to critique the show should be able to. Now, the next part of my video is probably going to be even more unpopular than the first part. But I think it's another important discussion that we have to have in the Doctor Who fan base. So, some people in this fandom treat the writing is bad as a statement of fact rather than the opinion that it is. The problem with that is that no fan, no one at all in my opinion, but especially no fan, is objective enough to evaluate the show without bringing their own preferences and their own biases to it. So in other words, I'm not saying you can't critique the show. I'm not saying that critiquing the show is in any way wrong or bad. What I'm trying to say is that you can say the writing is bad, but you have to understand that that is your opinion and that everyone has an opinion and that other opinions are going to disagree with your opinion, and that's fine. I also think that there's a way to critique the show, there's a way to criticize it without making the fans of it feel like they're, doing something wrong by being a fan of it. And I think that that's where some people go wrong, Because you can say that you dislike something without alienating those who like it. For example, you could say, I think Yaz and Ryan need more character development. I'd be fine with that. No problem with that. Or, I think the ending of, I don't know, Arachnids in the UK was resolved clumsily. I don't personally think that either of those things, but if someone wants to say those things, I don't think it would hurt anyone to have that discussion. But I think what I'm getting at with this part of the video is you can't act like the writing being bad is something that everyone just has to agree with. That's what I'm trying to say. Because you can't say, oh, the writing's bad. That's a fact. Because there are people who enjoy it, there are people who don't enjoy it. But it's all a matter of personal taste. It's not objectively bad. It's not objectively wrong to like it. It's just a matter of preference. So the title of this video is probably going to be something like, does Doctor Who have bad writing, or does Doctor Who have objectively bad writing? And the answer to that question is my own personal answer to that question is that I don't believe that I or anyone else am objective enough to answer that. However, I will say that I enjoy the show more than I have in years, and that I really adore the characters and the plots. However, I don't think anyone is objective enough to evaluate the show without bringing their own opinions, and I think that's okay. Art is really subjective. People just need to recognize and respect that, instead of pretending that if art doesn't meet this or that standard, it's objectively bad or wrong. Now, in my opinion, the only art that should be called objectively bad is art that actually harms real people through harmful and offensive tropes. Everything else is completely subjective, and that's fine. Something being subjective doesn't mean that it's a less valid opinion. It just means that other people are going to have other opinions, and that's okay. So basically what I'm saying is, if two people look at Doctor Who right now, and one says the writing's bad, and the other one says the writing is good, who's right? Both. Because it's all about personal taste, like I said. And my final point that I want to mention is that I have not seen one person mention, for example, Stranger Things or The 100, or, there are so many shows out there that I can mention having bad writing, even when, in my opinion anyway, both of those shows can have harmful tropes and harmful writing. So why does Doctor Who get singled out? I think it's partially because of the Not My Doctor people who, just hate the show and hate everything to do with it. So they're gonna mention that, and they're going to say, what they think of it, no matter what. And I don't believe that we can fully get rid of them, but I think we need to be clear that if you hate the show that much, A, you don't have to watch it. No one's forcing you. And B, you can't consider yourself on the same level as fans who are genuinely enjoying it or who have genuine critiques. Because if your critiques are all based in the fact, oh, I hate the fact that the Doctor's a woman, so I'm gonna hate everything that Chibnall and Jodie do, that's not a valid critique. That's just prejudice. I'm sorry, but sorry, Not My Doctor people, but that's true. I'm not going to go on about either Stranger Things or The 100, because I could go on for forever about both of those shows. I think that if you take one thing away from this video, I would like you to take away that A, criticism is good. B, criticism is good as long as it is not based in your own prejudice. So, for example, with Doctor Who, if you hate Jodie Whittaker and you think she's a horrible doctor and you think, like Chibnall's ruined the show forever, you're probably basing at least some of that on your own prejudices, and you need to, re-examine those. But if you just, have genuine criticisms and that's all good, that's fine. The next thing I want you to take from this video is that a few annoying, frustrating people can really ruin the experience in a fandom for everyone else. Because I know that, the Not My Doctor people are a minority. They're just very loud and very frustrating. But their existence within the fan base ruins things for the genuine critics who just want to talk about, hey, this character could be written better, or hey, this plot is not good. That's all fine. But the Not My Doctor people kind of ruin it for those people. And finally, the last thing I want you to take from this video is that you can critique art all you want to, as long as you understand that not everyone is going to agree with you, and that not everyone is going to want to fully engage with your critique. Like, for example, I understand that a lot of people enjoy media a different way than I do. But personally, the more critiques I have of something, the less I enjoy it. So, I don't go looking for critiques of things I enjoy only because I enjoy them. I don't want to ruin my own fun. However, I understand that everyone's different. So as long as you understand that too, we're good. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Please leave a comment and tell me, what you think the solution is to the Not My Doctor problem. And, if you're just a critic, what you think, would be the best way for people to word their criticism so that they don't get mistaken for Not My Doctor people. And I will see you in my next video. Stay magical. Bye.